Alright, let's go ahead and make sure first and foremost we're running npm run dev. And then inside our entity model in here, we want to go ahead and essentially replace this with hashtag so we can extract that. So what we want to go ahead and do first and foremost inside here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a folder inside apps called entities. And inside this entities one here, we want to, in this case, move in our entity extractor. Put in namespace for app entities. We're gonna have a class in here called entity extractor. So the entity extractor is also going to come with a contract. So let's go ahead and create a contract folder. And let's call this entity extractor contract. In here, we just want to have an entity in here. And for now, let's go ahead and say implements. We just want to make sure we have this namespace in here as well, first and foremost. Just like that. Let's go ahead and make sure we implement entity extractor contract. So the functions we want in here is public function get hashtag entities. In this case, that's going to be an array. We want a public function in here called render entities with links. And in this case, that's going to be a string because it's going to be what data we contain in here. So that will be. And on top of that, we want mention entities as well. So let's go ahead and make sure we get that through here. And that's going to be an array. We also want to have a function in here called get all entities, which is going to be an array. And we also want to have a public function in here. And we're also going to have a match function in here. And let's just go ahead and implement these here. We need to have this as just a function here. And then if you're using an ID, you can just go ahead and say add method stubs. And that will then pop up with this window here where you can then add them in. And then here we can then do all of the things we want to do. And then here, let's go ahead and say protected. I think for now, let's just leave those two out of just to simplify it. So go ahead and make sure these are protected. And then the first thing we want to go ahead and do in here is we want to essentially have a constructor in here. In here, we want to have a string. And we're going to set this string to be the string here. Sorry, we should actually just use a public or protected string here actually, so that will work even easier. So that's sorted here. So then we want to have a few constant here. So these are just the regular expressions we're going to be using here, but you can create your own and modify them. So one of them is going to detect the hash tags, and another one is going to detect the mentions. Go ahead and work on building a few different things here. So the first function I want to go ahead and work with is the build entity connection. So inside here, we want to return an array map with a function in here. In here, we want to have entity index. We want to use entities and through in here. So we'll just go ahead and make sure we're returning to correct right here. And then in here, we're going to return an array. Down here at the bottom, we just need to make sure we are returning entities with an array keys entity 0. And what we're going to go ahead in here and do is we're going to return the information we need. So we need body, which is going to be entity 0. We need body plane, which is going to be, in this case, entities. Then we're going to have an index in here. We're going to have 0. Then we're going to go ahead and put in the start here. And the start, we can essentially just say start equals entity 1. Start close. And we're going to get then the text here from the entity. And then we're going to basically calculate the end by doing that. And then the type as well. Just like that. We're also going to go ahead and this now. We should be able to then go ahead and build get all entities here. So to get all entities, you just want to return array, merge in this case, this get hashtag entities, and this get mention entities. So let's go ahead and actually just fill out those functions. It's going to be, in this case, containing a treat entity type. So it's going to be from just the app here. And then for the get mentioned entities, we just want to go ahead and add that in here. So if we go ahead in here, just like that. For the match function, we just want to do a preg match all on in here a pattern. And then for rendering the entities, all we need is just to do a preg replace basically. So to do that, what we're doing in here is essentially we're adding in a link here, hashtag slash whatever the URL want to be. We can maybe make that a bit better later on, and then we're returning that, replacing. Fine. So with that sorted, what we want to go ahead and do as well, because we need to essentially also have an entity database collection in here. So let's go ahead and add that. A class called entity database collection, access collection. We want to public function users collection return user way in, and then we block the body plane here. So what we want to go ahead and do now is inside our tree, we want to go ahead and say protected static function boot, and we want to have a parent boot in here. Then we want to have a static, and in this case, creator. And then in here, extract these using the entity extractor. So we're basically using a relationship called entities here on the tree model. So we need to create this relationship. And I'm going to actually move have any relationships, because what we can do is we can just copy and paste this in to this one here, just like that. And then we just want to go ahead, create an attribute here. So this attribute is essentially going to go into our extractor here. So we want to go into app entities, turn extractor, and render it with links. So what that should allow us to do is inside our tree here, we should be able to say, in this case, we can just go in and say tree with content with links, just like this. And we should be able to say that the same here for the retweet. So for now we have an issue here where in here we can't have this as null. So let's go ahead inside our entity extractor. So let's go ahead and set that by default to be null. Currently we're not getting any text out of it, so let's go ahead and see what's going on. I think if we go ahead and create a new tree and see if that works. May just be to do with the fact that we have some issue there. And we also need to set up the broadcasting. So let's go ahead and do that. So go ahead and start the reverb and reset the database. So let's go ahead and say hi with a hashtag here. And it still doesn't work. So let's go ahead and take a look at our database here. So inside our database here, we can see we have this entities table, and it didn't. As a starter, let's go ahead into our tree model here and into our entity model actually. So I think we forgot to add a function in here. So inside our entity model, we want to go ahead in here and say public function, new collection. Upon a new collection, we want to then go and say array models equals to an empty array. And we want to return a new entity database connection in here, pass through the models. So let's go ahead inside our tree again and delete that one as a hashtag. Right? And entity data. And make sure we use the correct namespacing. And it's going to we need to make sure we import correctly. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like in the database now. So it still doesn't seem to be getting it. So let's go ahead into our entity extractor in here. because we're putting through content when we are supposed to go through a body here. So let's go ahead and say hi and add a hashtag in here. And in this case, we get a different error, so that's great. In this case, let's go ahead and see what happened in our database. So we got a tree pull through, but it doesn't go through to add in the hashtag here. So if we go in here and say item on entity extractor, in this case, treat body, and we say get all entities. So if we go ahead and just add that in here. Complete. All right, let's see what happens now. We get an array in here, and in here we get the hashtag here, and we get it as plain as well. So that seems to be fine. Let's go ahead and all the trees here. Inside our entity, make sure it's guard set to empty there. That's array, that's perfect. Tree model here and check if we got the user set up in here. So let's go ahead and check if we got set up inside the entity model. So we need to set essentially the entity because it has a user ID. So let's go ahead and make sure we set that upon creation. Because this is where we basically see we have a user ID in here. So let's go ahead in here and say user ID. In this case, it's going to be same as. We can essentially grab this from auth ID. So now we at least have the entity in here. Just doesn't seem to be rendering properly. But let's go ahead and see why that may be the case. So let's go ahead and take a look at this attribute we created here, and let's pass through the body instead. And also just go ahead and make sure that in here we are actually getting it with HTML because we're rendering HTML here. And the same up here. Let's go ahead and refresh. There you go. So let's go ahead and take a look at this now. It appears nicely. So the only thing left to do really is just the styling of this, which we will be doing in the next video, so that you can clearly differentiate between a link in here to tweet and to the user and or hashtag. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.